Welcome back to this series on developing applications for the Canute console. And we've got a very important installment today that basically brings together everything we've discussed in this series so far. So far, we've discussed creating interfaces for your applications, utilizing data within those applications, both in terms of creating CSV files, tabular structures, as well as sourcing data from third-party APIs, which you might want to do within your applications to then cache that data obviously into those tabular structures or CSVs. I'm obviously using words interchangeably just so that everyone is clear what I'm talking about, regardless of your sort of technical expertise. Even though this series is obviously intended for technically minded people who sort of want to get into programming, are considering getting a Canute Scientific, or already have a Canute Scientific, but need a little bit of a helping hand on how to get started. So, I've obviously mentioned numerous times throughout this series the console charts application. And this application is incredibly handy as it essentially means that you do not need to create your own charting application or own charting, functionality within your application on the Canute Scientific. There is utilities to do that within Canute Lib, which console charts uses. However, charts are a little bit more complicated to create than your general sort of user interface component. So I don't recommend doing it manually. You can do, but honestly, using console charts, calling console charts within your application is a much better way to do it. So, first of all, let me give you a little bit of a rundown with how console charts works. What it does is it can take a CSV file that's within basically the same directory as the application. It can feed that in. It then reads that CSV using the .read CSV method in pandas. It passes all that data into a pandas data frame. We've talked about pandas data frames in previous episodes in more detail, but to summarize, they're basically a means to um, represent your Excel style data within a Python data structure that can be used directly within the programming language. That's sort of as much detail as you need to know, really. And they keep the structure of the data, all the columns and their row values intact. So it takes that data, and what it then does is it passes a chart from that data. That is right. With us having a multi-line Braille display here, the Canute Scientific, you are able to visualize charts in the same way a sighted person would be able to, on your generic sort of graph paper. You're able to do that on a Braille display, which is pretty incredible. There's not many, if any, other Braille displays that can do that. Now, due to the nature of Braille and the fact we only have 40 cells by 9 lines to work with, these are a little bit different, these charts, to their visual counterparts in that they're simplified. What we're not doing here is, drawing an image out of Braille to represent a chart, so to speak. We're just simplifying things to create, the equivalent visualization as you get visually, but we're not, I guess, directly mocking it, so to speak. We have our own way in Braille of representing data on a graph. So to summarize, the x-axis works very much the same. So your x and y-axis actually are the same. So you'd plot your data, and I'll explain how to sort of format it in a CSV file to ensure it's correctly interpreted by the script in a minute. But you basically plot your data pretty much as you do normally, and the script takes that and plots as you normally would across the x-axis. So, for example, if you had a line graph where you were, showcasing the trends in temperature across a year from January to December, your x-axis would be the months January to December, and then your y-axis would obviously be the temperature. It works very much the same here. In terms of the individual points on the graph and lines, etc., we don't obviously have a line joining points together. We don't need to. we just need the bare minimum to show the same visualization so that you can look at a glance or a slight feel at the trends. Uh, so what we do is we represent the points on the graph, and we simply do that using a single character symbol per point, going across the x-axis from left to right, um, and the height of those points obviously represents the size of the numerical value we're representing on the y-axis. So the higher the point, the closer to the first line on the Canute, would mean a higher temperature in this case. At the top of our graph, on the first line, we have the graph's title. As usual, you'd have on a Canute interface at the top right, we have the number page the graph is on. If the graph is too wide, if there's too many x-axis entries to represent in 40 cells, we just extend across different pages as we normally would. So yeah, we also finally utilize the status line. I've talked about the status line before, and its sole purpose is to give additional context to other elements that are selected on screen. In this case, the points on the graph, which you can select using the arrow keys on the keyboard of the Canute Scientific. When you select a point, and you can plot multiple different variables on a graph, by the way, so you might have multiple different symbol labels for the different measurements you've got. When you select one, it will show the exact value. So rather than having, as you would on a visual graph, Y labels displayed on the graph and X labels displayed on the graph, we simply do that on the status line when you select a point. Obviously, just to simplify things with the limited space we have. Now, moving on to formatting your data in the CSV file, it's important that you get this correct, and it's important that to get this correct, you understand how the different columns in a CSV file are interpreted by the graphing application. So, what you want to do in your CSV file is plot your columns across the top as you normally would. I explained how to do that in the second entry in this series about tables. So you'd have that as normal, either programmatically or if you're writing this manually in Micro or another text editor, or if you've downloaded a CSV file from the internet. So you'd have that. Now it's the column order that's important. So the first column is interpreted as the X label on the graph. So say we had a graph, months temperature wise for a year. If you had, the month to the leftmost column, that would be interpreted as the X label, which is fine. That can be numerical or string like. Now, the second column is important, as this column is interpreted as an annotation string. That's what we refer to it as in the application, quote unquote. So what is an annotation string? It's essentially an optional additional bit of data used to give additional context to the first column, essentially. Now, if you use an annotation string column, it'll be plot on the second line of the Canute. So this is visual. It's just meant as a visual aid, really. But a common use case for this might be, say, you were using my temperature example, right? You were plotting a graph to measure temperature over a number of months. What if you wanted to do that over a number of years? You could put the year in the first column as the X label, but to give additional context to that, you might have an annotation string that for that year is January, February, March, etc. Because obviously you're doing this on a monthly basis, right? This analysis. In that case, or in any case, the first character of this annotation string is used for each entry. So this is an optional thing, and it's only intended to be used if you need it. So if you, as I said, are measuring temperature over years monthly, then you need that additional annotation string in column 2 for the month for your entries as well as the year. and then the year would show when you highlight a point on the status line, and the month would as well. But you've also got the first character of each month abbreviated across the top as a bit of additional context. It's an optional thing. In a lot of cases, it isn't needed, but I'm just making you aware. Look at some example graphs using console charts for sort of a better idea of this. There's some examples in the examples folder, because it is a bit of a hard one to explain. But the key point is, if you do not need this annotation string, you must leave the second column of your CSV file blank. So if you don't have a gap between them, if you don't need an annotation string, you need to add a gap. Do not allow the second column to be your y-axis points. So for example, the temperature, do not have the first column as the month and then the second column as temperature. Otherwise, that temperature column will not be utilized correctly on the graph. You'd want, if you're just doing it, say the temperature example by months, and you don't need an annotation string example because you're not including multiple years, you just add the month as the X label, a blank column, and then your temperature column. So yeah, this temperature column, or this third column rather, is used as the first Y point column, and every subsequent column after that is used as further Y point columns, lines, etc. Whatever you want to refer to it as. You can add as many as you want, but obviously be careful of overcrowding on the graph. If you add too many, there may be no room for points to be displayed, and that can cause issues, or the graph might just get too crowded. Finally then, a little bit of a guide on running this script. In order to run this script, you need to go into the console charts directory, obviously in the command line or in the file explorer, and you need to run, as you normally would, a Python file, python charts.py, followed by the file name of the CSV file, which must be in the same directory as the file you're running, or you need to specify the directory, subdirectory of which you wish to run the file. For example, example/uk rain temp.csv. That displays rain and temperature on a graph. It's basically the same example as I just gave, but as well as the temperature y-axis column, there's an additional one for rainfall. So there's that, and then you can also specify a title for the graph using the --title argument. So you just pass a string title to that, for example, UK rain temp or anything of your choosing. There's also a --independent argument, which is a Boolean argument for the command line. That just specifies whether or not you want your different Y columns or lines to be displayed on their individual scales. If you don't set that independent value, all your Y values will be set on a scale. Basically, everything will be taken into account in a scale. So this can be a bit of, well, it can be a blessing and a curse. It depends whether you want to show kind of, I guess, the distance between two different values or not. So, for example, I have my own chart application where I show temperature comparisons between Earth and Mars. It can be beneficial to keep that independent variable off because it shows the vast distributions between those two temperatures. Whereas if I enabled independent, it wouldn't show that distribution, so it wouldn't be as useful. Instead, it would plot points on individual scales for each Y value, depending on how much the variance within them. So it depends whether you want to analyze variance in a single Y value. You want that to be the predominant focus of the graph, or you'd rather show the differentiation between two related Y values, so to speak. So that could be temperatures across two different locations, etc. And finally, we have the refreshable command line argument, which is also a Boolean command line argument. And that just determines whether the graph has a little refresh button or not, and if that refresh button was to be clicked, it basically reread the CSV file. So that can be useful if you're working with the CSV file in a different application simultaneously while using this graphing application. But that sums up utilizing console charts. In order to call it from your own application, you'd probably want to use a combination of Bash and Python. So you might have, I don't know, a Python weather application or any other kind of application that's fetching data from an API. You might want to run that, and then when you click a button within that to view the graph, return something to the Bash, like, the data you want to pass to the graph, like, I don't know, the name of the CSV or something. And then in Bash, you'd want to call the console charts application using the appropriate command line arguments, and do whatever you need to do. Maybe, I don't know, move that cached CSV from the application that as the origin of this. You might want to move that obviously to an appropriate location so it can be utilized by console charts. As I said, you can kind of take code from console charts and just copy it into your own application and tweak it to fit your individual needs, which in actual fact is what I did in the weather app, to be completely transparent with you. But I think especially if you're familiar with Bash, it can be easier to just call console charts. There's no need to write a load new code and tweak stuff, really. But that's all I have to say for now. Thank you for listening, and I'll catch you again soon.